We're recording this as part of the podcast.
Yeah. We're going to have a simultaneous sip.
All right, ready?
Wait, okay. So I'm going to start with Pellegrino because I am a lightweight since COVID started. Hold on. Let me put.
And so everyone knows we're recording this after hours.
Yes, as you can see, I have my light turned on because the sun is setting. All right.
All right, matching Woodford. Well, mine has less in it.
Yeah, yours has a lot less because COVID, man. I haven't drinking that much. All right, here we go.
I have a melted ice cube in here.
Oh, I should have gotten I got my little.
Yeah, I like that.
My highball. Okay.
All right,
finished it. Nice.
Hey, I'm a finisher.
You are a finisher. Good for you. All right.
Good for you.
Good for you, Tim. Did you feel that?
I did. I love it. I love it.
Okay, here we go. Simultaneous sip.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, I think I need more. One more.
Did you drink the whole thing?
No, I just took a sip.
Did you put soda water in there or no?
Yeah, I put carbonated water.
Yeah.
Pellegrino.
I like that with a little bit of citrus in it. I'll do the seltzer water or Pellegrino mineral water with a little bit of citrus or maybe an orange peel or something. And it kind of gives it takes a little bit of the tannin.
You know what I like? Have you ever put bacon in your bourbon?
But I love that.
Yes, somebody turned me on to that. You put a piece of bacon in there and yeah. All right. So
I can hear the ice clinking.
Cheers, guys.
This is the unofficial official podcast.
It's gone on YouTube.
Soon, I think it will be soon the official podcast of or part of the family of podcasts with JBrek.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think one of the things John asked today was, and we can get into the podcast. This is kind of the preamble, though, right? So, sure. What he asked about is, what is the podcast about? Because we were talking about how can we help customers more, in the building materials world. And I told him originally we started the podcast talking about, cladding and facades and exterior design, and then it sort of morphed into this thought leadership about trends and important things in the building industry and interviews with people we respect and want to get their perspective on. And now it seems like there's this whole brand new set of content and data and interesting things that I can dive into here at JBrek that we can talk about in addition to our, kind of existing flow, because there are serious things in the world of prefab and affordability and sustainability and all those things we've kind of talked about, but that we can actually extrapolate that into talking about specific building products, strategies that will help building product manufacturers or lumber and building materials in the channel and branding and pricing strategy and all those fun things. So anyhow, as I told you, my brain has been worked more in the last week than probably the last few months, just because of the amount of intel that we have. And I haven't even barely scratched the surface. So I'm totally stoked to be at John Burns Real Estate Consulting, but also it is daunting, a little bit daunting, the amount of material that people thoughtfully put together to help people grow their businesses. It's just amazing that these resources are here. And actually, I think a lot of folks just don't know they're there or are using them in their businesses. So anyhow, that's my long kind of diatribe.
No, some folks don't even, if they know the information's there, they don't trust that they don't trust the information. So they, they're like, they think they know. And this is so typical as a salesperson or even at any job. Okay. Like even a cashier person at a supermarket, if you ask them, what's the most the item that you think people buy the most, and they'll tell you for sure it's this, that, or the other. But when you look at the data,
Never right.
it's never right. I can tell you who, oh, I think this guy is my top customer, but then I look at my CRM and no, they're not my top customer at all. So you
Yeah.
have to rely on data. You have to
Yep.
look at the data.
I think there's something to the sort of gut check, intuition, anecdotal uh, thesis creation, but you have to take that thesis and then build on it to prove it out. And a lot of times what happens in building materials is that people take what they feel is right, and then they make big decisions based on that information that affect people's livelihoods, that affect the customers, that affect the research and development product flow, that affect technical requirements, that affect accounts receivable. It's far reaching, and the butterfly effect can be powerful in both ways, right? So I think that it's that example that you brought up is super powerful, because we just don't, what we think we know largely isn't true, or at least we're stating it inaccurately. So that's really
Like
cool.
you said, use the scientific method and disprove your hypothesis. You can pose, or you can posit, okay, my biggest customer is this. And let's go out and use the scientific method and disprove or prove your hypothesis, period,
Yep. I love the Mythbusters quote. Adam Savage says on there, he says, the difference between goofing off and science is recording the results.
There you go.
And I love that statement,
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
very
so
true.
true. I think while we're recording this, let's do a screenshot. I want to do a screenshot for Deanna at John Burns. She just came on. Where's my screenshot tool? All right, I'm gonna send this to her. Microsoft
Gotta
has
put a
this new
screenshot.
snip and sketch. Uh-oh, what happened?
You are not lit up anymore. There you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
I wonder
she
if it's
sat
this
next
new.
to me at Housing Innovation Alliance at the think tank.
She's epic, and she's going to be running our Design Lens. So Design Lens is a tool that it kind of compiles what builders and designers are doing around the country in production, production builders, custom homes, and so forth. What are kind of innovative things they're doing with exteriors or bathrooms or layout or outdoor living or community design, master plan community, all those things, and giving a lens into the future and putting the thought onto it. Like, if you're in this kind of stage of building, then this might be useful to you. If you're this type of builder, this might be useful to you. But anyhow, she's heading that up, and I'm probably misstating it because it might change completely. But let's say hello, and I'm gonna do a snip. Uh-oh, I don't want to
Live
do that.
hello. Live hello.
All right, ready? All
See,
right, I got it.
I'm small on my screen, but I'm probably big on your screen. So, oh my God. I don't even know what
No,
I'm.
that's cool. I'm gonna send it to her on Teams right now while we're doing this live, and we'll see if Anna wants to edit this out.
All right.
But so you sat near each other at the Housing Innovation Alliance.
He was on my first breakout group. We sat next to each other at the first breakout group. Because as you
Wow.
know, as we discussed, there were not that many women at this event. So I think we kind of stuck together. So I was next to her, and then there was one other woman. She was local to Denver. So I'm gonna have my accent probably coming through tonight. Like most people tell me, "Oh, you don't have an accent. English is not your first language," but I can already tell it's coming because the Woodford is kicking in. So there you go.
I love it. All
Mm.
right, I'm typing a message to her now. We use Microsoft Teams, so I'm gonna send it to her. Carolina
I like
says,
recording at night so we can drink. I think that's a brilliant idea, Tim.
"We'll see how everyone likes it."
Well, we don't have a
It
guest.
may not be, it may not be fully endorsed by John Burns Real Estate Consulting for this particular episode. We'll see.
Oh, you know who it'll be endorsed by?
Woodford. Woodford is our sponsor.
Yes. Woodford Reserve. Cheers. Every time we say Woodford, we have to drink.
That's right. You know, my first introduction to Woodford, and this actually gets into branding a little bit, was Jeff Locke had been, I think, on a tour with Woodford or something like that. Some sort of experience around Woodford as a distillery. And he was explaining it to me. And by the time he got done explaining how much he liked it, I was sold.
Well, he's a great salesperson.
He is. But that's how, you know, it's taking that passion and knowledge and understanding about a specific subject and conveying that in a way that gets other people on board. That is what is really interesting about the relationships in the building products industry to me,
And it's
because
what
people are
distinguishes
very
the good
passionate
from the
about
bad.
it. What's
Yeah.
that?
It's what distinguishes the brands that get recognized that clients come back to versus the ones that don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Yep. And I think that that's why you have people fawning over certain building products brands and people going, who, what about others, you know?
Yeah. But Woodford is good, you gotta admit. I don't know how I got into Woodford. I want to say maybe it was Mark.
Yeah. And Mark Greenwald's a fan of Woodford too. And I think, you know, there's that craft that comes with distilling. There's the craft that comes with craft brewing. People get into wineries. Like I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about what are the best investments. And the guy was going through, okay, gold, silver, platinum, oil ETFs. And he was kind of listing off these commodities. And then he said original art, distilleries and breweries.
Okay.
I was like, wow, that's quite a diverse mix
That is a diverse
of
portfolio.
investments. Yeah. So
Mm.
if your portfolio looks like that, then you're, you know, you probably up for any kind of storm in the world.
Yeah, you're ready. Any pandemic can't hurt you. Nothing can hurt you.
That's right.
So speaking of pandemic, what we kind of wanted to talk about today was kind of a follow-up. We're 9 months into about 9 months in, right? Since COVID hit. And,
Yep.
where are we at? What's happening? Did we
I
fall
think
in?
there's kind of two things I think I've seen in our world, in the building materials world, in construction. The disparity between the have and have nots matches
Yeah.
every other, you know, part of the market in the US economy. And I think that you have people like, for instance, John Burns, Nichiha, tons of companies doing these. I shouldn't say, there should be more, where they're hiring, looking to the future,
Yeah, Fireclay.
investing, looking to the future, right? As opposed to those who are operating from a position of fear. And what's happening with those who are operating from a position of fear, I think, is you're going to have two scenarios play out there. One is that they will divest, or they will be acquired by somebody. So for instance, you're seeing that so much in the kind of SaaS offering space. You have that so much in the space um, of even our space of consulting and data and analytics. CoStar is working on a big deal. I mean, all those things uh, speak to the roll up that's about to happen, that happened after the expansion. So after every expansion, you have a compression or contraction. And in that contraction is a rolling up of entities. So people might roll up companies for the sake of intellectual property. They might roll up companies for the people assets. They might roll up companies for the assets and inventory. But whatever that is, there's going to be a lot more of that happening. And if you're in a company in that space or you're looking to expand, that's a great opportunity to, you know, put something together.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
my take. What do you think?
I agree. I think, but what do you consider the pandemic a contraction in the market? Because the building industry is doing remarkably well despite the pandemic. We're having December is going to be the biggest month in sales ever at Fireclay. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it's going to be public knowledge anyway. It's our biggest sales month ever as a
Oh
company
yeah.
in 30 years.
We're seeing
So
that all over with particular companies that think ahead. Nichiha's the same way. Best Q4 probably ever.
yeah, cheers to that. I'll drink to that.
Woodford.
Woodford. Yeah. So yeah, the world is different and lots of people are suffering and lots of parents out there suffering, trying to work, trying to homeschool their kids, trying to provide. And I reached a point a few weeks ago, and you and I talked about this offline, where I was just I hit a wall. I set all these high expectations for myself during the pandemic. And we talked about this in the quarantine plan, that one episode that has gotten so many downloads. Um, I just put so many high expectations and high standards for myself that I crashed and burned. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of striving. I'm tired of, and I did get results. Okay. I've had the most growth in my sales pipeline, and I've connected with my clients, and my job and my career doing great. But personally and emotionally, I just hit a wall, and I've just been like, what is the point? Why am I trying so hard? So this last 6 weeks or so, we went to the Grand Canyon and we hiked the Grand Canyon. And I feel like that day, my outlook shifted, or at least began to shift, right? It was almost like the winter solstice, and it's like now receding. And I'm trying to find some balance and just really enjoy life for what it is and enjoy this moment for what it is, rather than putting all this pressure on myself to learn French, connect with every client I have, rewatch Mad Men, take the historic preservation adaptive reuse class on design, watch all the master classes. Yeah, like that is welcome to my head. I need a drink right now.
I do feel like what's happened in this pandemic and these times, one thing that people aren't doing enough, and I need to do this myself, is going, okay, you work all the time. It's okay to have fun. You work all the time. It's okay to not get everything right all the time. It's okay to not do a 12-hour or 15-hour day. And the thing that we have to remember is the standard right now is a scaled back effort. That's the standard. So if we were just to maintain where we were at before, we would be and should be scaling up in terms of the curve. But you and I have actually stepped up our efforts. We're actually doing more than ever.
Yes.
And being involved in more things and doing more personal development than we've ever done before. So coming out of this, everyone who's done that is going to stand out. It won't even be close. It won't even be close.
That makes me feel better.
You should feel better. I
I
know you. I know that that you put your heart and soul into efforts you believe in, and you won't work on things you don't believe in. So, that bodes well in many respects, and for not only for Fireclay, but you in your personal life and your professional life, especially your professional life. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that time. Where you guys went to Grand Canyon?
We went to the Grand Canyon. So I have been, and I live in the mountains, right? I live really close to the San Gabriel Mountains. I can go on hiking trails, walking distance from my house. And I do this every morning. Every morning I go on walks and I connect with nature. I just need that. But I was just feeling so burned out, and I was feeling so lonely, I guess, isolated. I miss my family and we can't travel, and just missing seeing people other than my family that I live with in my house. And I just really needed something massive like that. And and that provided it. Like, I had nature, I had beautiful sights, and a massive effort to hike down to the Grand Canyon and hike back in one day, 21 miles in one day. that that test of endurance and stamina and physical, whatever you want to call it, really helped me to gain some perspective and to slow down. I didn't check my phone that day. I did take a bazillion pictures, but I was present. Like I counted my steps sometimes, and it was just a really, really great way to rebalance and reset for the end of the year. And I really think it set me up for a nice Q4.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that because especially people like you and I know there are a lot of folks that listen that are similar. And we went to Zion with a bunch of friends, and of course it was all distance, and you're outdoors and all those things in October, and that was a very grounding experience.
Did you do Angel's
we
Landing?
What's that?
Did you do Angel's Landing with the ropes?
Did Angel's Landing.
Oh my god.
Absolutely. We couldn't go in the river because at the Narrows, because that's actually one outcome and result that's still being paid for by Zion National Park. And that is at the beginning of the pandemic, when all the rangers were put on furlough, that whole area shut down. And what happened is a bunch of homeless people went up and basically, and I wouldn't blame them. I mean, it's beautiful up there. They lived up there, but there were no facilities. So they had to use the river and the surrounding grounds in the Narrows, where there's hardly any surrounding grounds.
Yeah.
And what happened is the river now is unusable. You can't walk in it, or you shouldn't walk in it. You definitely shouldn't drink the water.
Yeah, there's a huge
Because of cyanobacteria, right, that can't be killed. It just has to eventually die off. But anyhow, that was a metaphor kind of for the times we're in. But that was, as a group, we all agreed, all of us just work too much. And I shouldn't say too much. We work a lot. And so that was a very good way to get focused on what's important. I agree. It was great to not have cell signal. Even when I didn't really think about it. I was on holiday, and it was very relaxing. And normally vacations, I don't relax really well. That was one. I was able to kind of reset. And then not long after that, I was involved in these conversations with John Burns to come on board here. And I think that it really set me up to be able to
be open to it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I recently met your new boss.
Yeah, you guys, I heard about your conversation. I'm glad you guys got to do that, because I mean, if nothing else comes of that conversation, what happens what we need in this industry is more connection. We had a workshop today on LinkedIn with Amelia. Her company is called Clout, KLOWT. If you get to watch her LinkedIn lives, they're super informational. They really stack up well with what Zach and Beth from Vimeo teach in their LinkedIn workshops, and they complement each other really well that way. But anyhow, we were talking about that today, and how important it is to make these connections. And so one of the things we talk, if I just get my papers here, she brought up how important it was what you want to be known for. So what I said I wanted to be known for, what I thought maybe was already known for, but need to distill, Woodford Distillery, distill even more, is being a building materials and prefab offsite modern methods of construction subject matter expert, and that I want to be known as a connector and a trusted advisor. And so, I mean, that is the quickest way I've ever kind of like compressed what I know about myself, but it took that conversation to break it down, instead of being a 5-minute explanation, or being like, I don't really know what our podcast is supposed to be for. I don't really know what exactly I'm known for, to be able to say, this is what I'm known for. This is what our podcast is about. This is how I can help people. And I mean, that's what this industry is all about. Without those connections, it's super difficult to make progress.
I agree. Okay. And you're the perfect person for it. And I think you already are a trusted advisor and a connector. You've definitely connected me with lots of people. And I think that we complement each other pretty well in terms of skills and knowledge, and even contacts, because I my contacts are different than your contacts because I've had different dealings in the industry than you have. So I think it's a nice sort of rounding out of folks and skills and talents. And in terms of, I didn't do your exercise and I didn't take that class today, but of course I've thought a million times about the podcast and how I can be of service and what I bring to the table. And my experience, always considered myself a troubleshooter in terms of mediating and problem solving at the job site. So you have the material on the ground, you have this vision from the architect, and then you have these people, and then there's gravity in the real world. And how do you make everything work, and how do you make it happen, and how do you keep everyone happy, and how do you keep everyone making money? Because one of the things we talked about at the last couple episodes ago, I always used to, I always would notice that the installer is the one that always gets screwed in these situations. So it's like, okay, how can we arm these people, everyone, whoever's listening, how can we arm you with knowledge and perspective? So the installer has a perspective, the general contractor has a perspective, the estimator has a perspective. We all have our own shoes to fill. So how do we understand what the other person is feeling, thinking, needing, scared of? And then, because I believe that, when you have conflict, it's because you don't understand what the other person's going through. You think your problems are the only ones that matter, which is understandable. But once you put yourself in the other person's shoes, then you can say, okay, well, if it was me, or if you put your daughter's face or your son's face or someone you love's face in the other person, then you can understand, okay, this is why they're bitching at me. This is the problem. This is what we need to work on. And I don't know, unless you're really, really thick-headed, solutions happen. So, that is what I wanted for this podcast, is for people to understand that everyone has a role to play in this industry, and we have to understand those roles really well. A, to attract talent because we need it, and B, to make it better and to work better together. I don't know if that's a bourbon talking, but
Yeah, it actually kind of gets back to the main tenet of the podcast, build perspectives,
Mhm.
because what's behind everything you're describing, and actually if you're really drilling into the roots of perspective, it is all about empathy. And a lot of folks, I shouldn't say a lot of folks because I don't know what a lot of folks think about, but if you bring up the term empathy in a room full of people in the building materials industry, you're going to get a pretty mixed result and response.
Mhm.
But to me, what empathy means is really understanding what people in the room are going through. For instance, let's take, for instance, the Housing Innovation Alliance. Okay. Very few women in that room. What are they going through? What are they thinking about? The people that are on the upswing in their career, on the downswing in their career, don't know what's next. Now we're in the middle of this pandemic. What are they thinking about? What's on their mind? What's their challenge? All those things. If we don't get into that sort of mode when we're thinking about our clients, then we can't possibly give them the sort of value they need to do their jobs well, to perform, to feel satisfied in their job, to enjoy their life, their professional life, to progress. I mean, we can't
Make
be
more money, to get more business,
exactly.
to
We can't be
grow.
part of that process without having empathy. And there's to me in our business, what's really held back the construction industry is that there's the competition just steamrolls empathy. It just rolls it right over.
Mhm.
Empathy is actually pretty powerful, but it takes individuals, enough people to stand up and say, okay, I've I've know exactly what this general contractor is going through. I know what this inside salesperson at the counter, they're totally underpaid and overworked. This interior designer has got 12 clients. She's barely making ends meet. I mean, all of those things are important things to consider so that we can help people have wins in their career, wins in their project, wins for their company, and help the companies have wins for their clients. I mean, if we don't have empathy, we're not ever going to be able to sustain a level that's going to help those organizations and individuals.
That's exactly right. And at the same time, we want to build awareness to new things that are coming up, to sustainability issues, to ways that you can use innovation in the building materials industry, since we always tend to be like the last ones to adopt new technology. So there's that element too. We want to make sure that we're bringing in technology that's out there to help the industry, to protect the planet.
Yeah, it sounds so, probably 20 years ago, if someone said we need to protect the planet, I'd been like, whatever. Keep work at work, all right? Um, but now when you see the steps that we can each take to even make small strides towards that in our business, in our lives, it doesn't have to completely absorb everything we do as an organization or as a person, but we can each do something. And if we each do something, that becomes pretty powerful and pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that it'd be really cool to tie this back to other episodes we've done about adaptive reuse, sustainability, not tearing buildings down to build something else that's new and modern because of all the kind of multiplicity of the carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
All those things tie in together, and I think that it would be fun to discuss that in a future episode. But one of the things we were going to talk about, or the thing we were going to talk about in this episode, was our COVID plan follow-up. And what I love about you is you are even more focused, or I shouldn't say more focused. You have a really good kind of mechanism for personal development. And it's not one thing, it's kind of multiple things working in concert to help you be your best Carolina. So we should talk about this. Should we do our intro?
Sure. Our intro to the show in the middle of the show.
Our intro to the show in the middle of the show.
That works. It's called Woodford Reserve After Hours.
I love it. I love it. So I'm gonna do blue.
Do it.
So for all of you that are listening, all 17 and a half that are listening, the way we structure our show is we have an intro and outro. And in the intro, and usually it's Carolina kind of developing this and putting and organizing the intro and outro and the content in our show notes so that we can have a well flowing show. I don't know what the right adjective is there, but we highlight the copy in blue and black so that we can know who is going to do what. So whenever you hear in the show, like, are you doing blue or are you doing whatever? So anyhow, I'm going to start with blue.
Okay.
And we'll start our show now in the middle of the show. All right. Hi, we are Tim and Carolina, and we are a couple of friends, colleagues, and former coworkers. We love the building materials industry. And for the past 10 plus years, we've bounced ideas off each other, had deep conversations debating perspectives in the industry, male perspective, female perspective, contractors, developers, building materials manufacturers, all those different things, residential, commercial, sales, technical, market research, data analytics, and so much more. And that inspired us to share our experience and our guest experience, of which we are the guests today, to broaden perspectives in construction and design.
So if today is your first time listening, welcome. We welcome all of you, and we really would love to hear from you. We'll be talking about, we're going to be reviewing today our quarantine personal development plans that we made back in March of 2020. Today is December. of 2020. So we're going to go back over and see if we walked the walk.
I love how you delineated this. You have two columns. For people that can't, well, we're not recording it, so no one can see it except us. But there are two columns in Carolina's pre-show prep. One is my plan, and then I did. And I like how you broke that down. And you did this preparation, and I didn't do any. So I look up to you in this regard because your preparation is so good. And so I would like to for you to talk through a little bit about what your plan was, and it still is in some of these respects, and then what the outcome was and how you see this developing over the next few months. I mean, even if we have a vaccine, this is still going to be our reality for at least the next 6 months. So walk
Absolutely.
us through it.
And it's a plan. So if you haven't heard that show, I would encourage you to go back over and listen to it. It's, I guess it's like halfway through to the end is when we go over all of the recommendations, and there is a sheet with the recommendations on the website. So highly recommend that you go back and listen to that so that some of this makes sense. And to follow up to what you said, this was my personal development plan specific to me. I'm a right now in this moment in time, I'm a salesperson with children at home, and in a relatively new job. So at the time the pandemic hit, I'd only been at this job maybe 4 or 5 months, and I've only been in California for 2 years. So I don't have a vast network of clients, if you will. So it was kind of tricky for me for at the time that the pandemic hit, because I'd just gotten started calling on people that had no idea who the heck I am. So that's just a little background. But again, a lot of these things are recommendations for personal development plans under normal times, non-pandemic times. So I highly recommend that you start with knowing what your life goals are. Don't follow me and have ridiculously high standards for yourself, because then you get burned out. So anyway, going back to my plan, my personal plan was to check on all of my clients at the time by phone and email. And I did. I had enough time at home that I was able to do that. I wanted to also do some prospecting of new clients on LinkedIn with LinkedIn Navigator, which then we ended up losing LinkedIn Navigator because it was too expensive, and we're trying to save money for COVID because we didn't know what the heck was going to happen with the business. But I did end up doing a lot of prospecting, just not using LinkedIn Navigator. It was all sort of web crawling, if you will. I did not go through, where is my business cards are still up there on the top of my shelf. I had a 500 plus business cards, a bunch of trade shows.
Business cards, what are those?
Right? Exactly. Remember when we met people and they give you cards? So I didn't do that. I'm just not sure that that's the best use of my time. So I did go through the cards themselves, but I decided not to do anything with them. So that was, I don't know. I made that call at that time. Then I said I was going to talk to all of my clients that I had already set appointments for during right before COVID hit, and I of course did that. Most people, I found that I was ahead of the curve, and I'm sure you did too, Tim, because you and I have been using Zoom for years, but the people in our industry haven't. And so it was interesting to kind of have to wait for everyone to kind of catch up to the Zoom technology, for them to actually be willing to have Zoom meetings and do CEUs by Zoom and things like that. I did dig through Urbanize LA and Curbed, use that for prospecting too. And I've gotten into a couple of projects, so that worked out great. I did, one of my things was to create video of my product presentations, my parts and my product. So yeah, I really got into video. COVID, one of my big COVID things has been getting better at video, even though it probably doesn't show, but that's because and I'm tired. But yes, lots of video.
Wait, let me stop you right there. For those who are listening to the audio, Carolina is doing the right thing during these times. And so what I mean by that is a lot of presentations I have been on, not necessarily at JBrek, but across the industry, almost half the people or more than half the people are off screen. They're muted. Who knows what they look like? So Carolina is very more than presentable, looks great, is awesome on camera, and that is what you need in an era where all we have is the camera. So that is I mean, if you can do that and show up to things on time, that is a huge thing, a huge way to stand out.
Yeah, definitely. That has returned tenfold for me. I got a Loom account and I've been using Loom instead of email. I actually put a video and I create the video on the fly. I learned this from Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income. And yeah, I just, instead of typing some boring email and then you have to paste pictures into your email, and all I do is I have the product with me and I create videos in response to either client requests or warm leads or hot leads. And I say, hey, I made this video for you. Hey, Tim, thanks for your interest in fire clay. Here is the product you were interested in. I'd be happy to set up an appointment. And I can't tell you the number of appointments I've had with people because I've been creating videos and sending them online. So, and it's literally less time to make a video than to type an email out. And you can tell with Loom who's viewed your video and when they watched it. So if they watched it. And you can do
That's a great point. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, so that has been the biggest game changer for me in terms of my work performance has been these Loom videos for sure. Because they get open. They get a much better open rate. What else? Weekend Language. Oh, Weekend Language is this book that when they hired me at Fireclay, they bought me the book. And I did end up working that into my presentation. I did read Sell More in Less Time with Jill Conrath with my team. I've read like 60 other books since then. That is an excellent book, though, if you're new to sales. And it was great timing for COVID because it was kind of like, okay, how do I prioritize my sales activities? And there's just like very specific time breakdowns. And so I implemented that into my ideal day and ideal week. And we talk about the ideal day and ideal week in that episode. And I highly recommend, if you don't have an ideal day set up or ideal week, definitely do that. That is a life game changer. Exercise at least 30 minutes daily. Yes, I exercise at least 30 minutes daily. And I've actually lost 22 pounds since COVID started. Because I've just made that commitment to exercise, to eat better, so that I have the energy to do all these other things that I want to do. So,
Well, that's a great breakdown between your COVID plan. I shouldn't say breakdown. That's an awful way to say it because it sounds like things broke down. It's a great way to explain your plan
drill down.
and the outcome, because you can't make a plan that's 10 or 20 steps long and hit all of the marks, but you have to. If you don't make that plan, the chances that you'll hit any of the marks is very, very low because there are no marks. So we need to do that in our business, and that's what keeps us on point. That's what separates and gives us that competitive advantage. That's what is something that helps people in the business that need what we know, or need our help, or need some sort of connectivity with somebody we know. So that helps us to stay relevant. I know you probably, like a lot of high achievers, think about a lot the things that maybe didn't go well. But I'm glad that we talked about the things that you accomplished, because without a goal, one cannot be reached, right? So it's really important to think that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's been definite frustrating moments. My house is a constant mess. It's constantly dirty. Uh, it's not been perfect, and cooking. I'm just so tired of cooking and doing dishes and whatnot. But overall, it's been, nobody in our house has gotten sick. Nobody in our family has tested positive. We've followed all of the recommendations. So look, we're very blessed and we're very lucky. And yeah, I mean, I've got, for the next 3-4 weeks, I'm going to be planning out my 2021 goals, and we'll definitely do a little something for that like we did last year.
Right.
So stay tuned for that. But I want to go back to your plan. So I did take a little some of your notes from your quarantine plan, and you said you were going to visit some job sites. You were going to be doing some prospecting, and I know like your life changed because now you're no longer at Nichiha. So you did a major pivot. We were going to talk about learning, remodeling, improving your relationships at home, and developing your writing and your creativity. So how did you do with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Good. Good summary. I think one challenge with job sites were the, especially the bigger job sites, what were the kind of fencing off for
Yeah, the
security.
restrictions. Hmm.
Now, near my home are Toll Brothers, KB, Pulte, and a couple of small kind of local builders. And we live in a town of maybe like 10,000 people, 7 to 10,000 people, depending on who you listen to. And in the next 5 years, it's going to be 20 or 25,000 people. I also went through this in Issaquah and Redmond and have seen this play out over time. So I know exactly what's going to play out. But locally, I got to go to some residential job sites and really see and take actually a couple of builder friends of mine through these different models and stuff. So they have these regimens for COVID, mask, sanitizer, all these different things set up really, really well. So touring some of these models, looking at the materiality. And you know what I learned in this, as they say in Canada, the process. I have a shout out to Matt and Allison. And so so when I went through these job sites, I realized that they haven't changed the materials since I started at James Hardie in 2003. I don't see hardly any differences in these products.
Like in house
And
wrap
the
and
wall assembly, it's very similar. I mean, some of the actually product brands and stuff like that have changed. But as far as advancement, so I'll give you an example. So Toll Brothers, right? So KB Homes is right behind my house, and then Toll Brothers is just down the street. So Toll Brothers has been building through the pandemic, and it's been kind of a herky jerky because of the regulations and the state. But they were using a pre-built wall panelized assembly from BMC West, so which is great. But because of all the supply chain disruption, now I see they're stick framing everything, which is a huge sea change for Toll Brothers, at least regionally here. So that's a change I saw, and I wouldn't have seen that if I wasn't at the job site. I also saw so many different trades working on multiple aspects. So a trade that would normally just do siding, talk with them and say, hey, have you brought on any additional business during COVID? And they're like, yeah, you know, instead of just doing the siding, now we're doing the decks, and now we're doing the preforming for the concrete stairs and all these things just to speed up the process
mm,
because of the constraints on labor, which
yeah.
were already a problem. So I've seen that and been learning a lot on the residential side there. And then prospecting has changed from two respects. So what's been really cool is because of the podcast and other things, people reach out to me, and I'm sure I'm sure they do to you, to find out kind of my thoughts or our thoughts on different things, which has been great. And that has led to new business, and that has led to new prospecting opportunities.
Mhm.
And then, I've been using Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Sales Navigator for that. Well, because of those relationships now at John Burns, I have these additional products and services that will be super valuable to a lot of these folks. And so now those connections help tie into these offerings, these things that people can use in their business and apply it right away. So the prospecting over the last several months is going to be really useful
What's an
because
example of a product or service? I guess LinkedIn Navigator, it would be one, but what is something that you think that you'd want to recommend to people? that you
Well,
found
LinkedIn
helpful?
Sales Navigator is kind of expensive. It's like $70 a month or something like that. Um, but it is super useful. I mean, when you think about your return on investment, you know, you would have to be selling the smallest, cheapest product to not be able to dollarize that out in from a prospecting standpoint.
I agree.
If you're doing something that sells for, $2,500 and you get one lead that buys the product in a year, well, you have a great ROI, so I think that LinkedIn Sales Navigator is useful. I also think that the podcast, if people do video or podcasts, that's super helpful in growing the audience and helping us all be credible with each other so that we know where to turn if we have an issue or we have a problem or we want to vet out some sort of idea. And those things, those are the conversations I have with people throughout the last several months and I have scheduled out over the next several weeks. So it's really helped that way. And using those integration tools with your CRM and LinkedIn can be really useful, really useful. What I
Mhm.
learned about the remodeling market, so I went through this conversation with NADRA, which is National Association and North American Rail and Decking, or Decking and Rail Association, however the acronym goes. And they did a deep dive into home aging or housing stock and aging, and understanding how big the remodel market is in comparison with new construction commercial, new construction multifamily, new construction residential, single family, and build for rent combined. Remodeling is bigger than all of them. So learning that is a bigger opportunity than I thought it was for building materials is a pretty big deal. And then relationships at home and writing and creativity in terms of the goals that we talked about in the episode. Relationship at home, especially with um, my daughter, has gotten better because she's had space to have a support system around her instead of quarantining on her own in her apartment. She is back here with me and she can work on her career, personal development, all those things without worrying about her surroundings so much. She has a support system. So that I'm really glad about. And then writing and creativity. I've read more books and listened to more content than I ever have in the past. I have done very little writing though. And that is on my goal. A lot of folks say we should write a book or I should write a book or whatever. So that is an interesting prospect for the future. So those are kind of the things that I had on my mind at the beginning of COVID when we first went through those 3 or 4 episodes about personal development and kind of where the result came in.
Yeah, it's been a very productive time for you. And I would say, people say that COVID has been the catalyst for a lot of things, good and bad. And it's been a catalyst for your career for sure, and mine too. So congrats for seizing the moment and
Likewise.
making lemonade.
Likewise, we could have easily said through this, like, let's take a break from the podcast. It is work, and I know you put a lot of energy and effort into it, especially, and it'd be easy to, I wouldn't say be back on our laurels. I feel that's a little judgy, because everyone has different situations, but it is easy to take a break.
Mhm.
And if we treat this as a time of opportunity and not a time of panic, then it can be really useful for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And I think that a lot of people that listen to this podcast, a lot of people we're friends with and connected with professionally and personally are doing just that. And I think that's amazing. I'm really grateful to be connected to the people that I and we are connected to.
Yeah, same. Same here. We're very lucky. This is a very good industry. Treats everyone treats everyone that's the theme that we when we talk to our guests. This is an industry full of passion and good people.
Yeah, salt of the earth, really. I mean, there's so much great experience and knowledge and people that want to make a difference. And sometimes we don't know what to do to make a difference. Sometimes we don't, um, we can't quite get there. And that's why these connections are so useful, because when we connect, when we spitball, even just spitballing and brainstorming, then it starts to whet the appetite for more of that. And then as you do that more, you start to create a structure around it. And as that structure is created, you start to create goals. And as those goals are created, you start to aspire to bigger things. As you aspire to bigger things, and you have stronger results with specific business metrics. So if that is what anyone else wants, then this community around Build Perspectives and around our two companies and around the friends and interesting people we've met over the last 10 years, then I think that that can be really useful to a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And so for the next episode, we are going to each one of us bring to the table the plan, the next, what's next.
What's next? That's the power. What's next? So
And I call it hustle and flow. Okay. So my life philosophy is, thank you, Woodford, for letting me say this, is, you plan, right? You make your plans and then you go with the flow. So you have a plan that you can follow. And then when life shows up, which it will, then you pivot and you go with it. But like you were saying earlier, you started off the episode. If you don't have a plan, what was the quote from Benjamin Franklin? If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail.
right, and without a goal,
Plan to fail.
one cannot be reached. So if you don't set a goal, then you're not going to hit a goal. So
Yeah.
I think that
Okay, one more cliche. Yogi Berra. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else.
yeah, I love that. And you couldn't really say it any better way than that. And we don't want to end up somewhere else. We want to end up where we're supposed to be. And where we're supposed to be is all working together to make this industry better. And the good thing is there are a lot of amazing people that can make just that happen. So, if you have resources, share them. If you have thoughts you want to share, jump on a LinkedIn live video, do an Instagram post, write a post on LinkedIn, get it out there. It doesn't have to be pretty, doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be real. And that's what we've endeavored to be.
Yeah, I think that's a mic drop moment. And we started a new tradition today.
I love it.
We're back to our old days. We're just not in the same room.
Right, exactly. And I look forward to when we all can be at events and meetups in whatever city makes sense in the future. But right now, we have these great provisions of Zoom and Teams and all these things. So make the most of them.
Yeah. This is where we are. So, this podcast is made available free to you, our loyal listener, thanks to Venvio, Smarter Building Materials Marketing Podcast. Please subscribe and rate us on your podcast player.
If you love Build Perspectives, and I'm sure you do, I hope you do, consider leaving a review or rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform on which you listen. Your ratings and helpful reviews bring new listeners, grows our audience, and helps us to create content that is needed, helpful, relevant, and valuable. So do it now. Take a minute and open your phone and do a review or rating.
Did you do it? Did you? How about now? Let us know what you think. So, hopefully, entertaining architecture and construction talk and fresh perspective, something Tim's dad says you can never have too much of. And one more simultaneous sip.
I'm empty.
I'll send you a bottle. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.